Hey guys, today we're going to talk about a rubric for our one-pager assignment for the last dog. So this is partially independent, a pair, and a group activity. If you're one of my C students, I will explain to you guys what to do as well. You will choose one of the group member roles and complete the things on that rubric instead of having to have it all done. So let's look at and see what we got. So the first thing you have to do, or your first part of criteria, is to have the title and author's name. You have 1 point for listing the title. The title spelled correctly is worth 1 point. It's large enough to see from across the room. The author's name is present, and the author's name is spelled correctly. So the title and author section is worth a total of 5 points. I'm going to enlarge so y'all can see a little bit more. Then we have our genre and subgenre. So listing your genre is 1 point. That's going to be fiction or nonfiction. And your subgenre listing is 1 point. That's going to be like historical fiction, fantasy, realistic fiction, myth, biography, autobiography, memoir. This is a science fiction story. So your subgenre should be science fiction. Then we have group member 1 internal conflict. Now, group members 1, 2, 3, and 4 all have the same section or the same requirements for your internal and external conflicts. The only difference are the page numbers. So if you're one of my C students, you can choose the part of the story that you feel was easiest for you to find an example of an internal and external conflict. So, for example, the first thing you're going to do for an internal conflict is you're going to quote at least one complete sentence. That's 2 points. Then it says quote is found on pages 183 through 185. So making sure that your quote's in the correct place is worth a point. You're going to demonstrate an example of an internal conflict, or your quote demonstrates that, so that's 1 point. Quote uses correct parenthetical referencing. That's 1 point. That means you're going to put the author's last name, comma, the page number, and then comma, the line number or numbers, depending on how long your quote is. Then we're going to have, and it's for this one, the story is not done by lines. So you're going to actually end up doing, instead of line number, you're going to put the paragraph number for me. So make sure that let me back this up. I'm going to change this to paragraph. So you're going to put paragraph number instead of line number. And it says, quote is written neatly and legibly. That's 1 point. That means, can I read it? And who have at least a 2-sentence explanation of how the quote is an internal conflict relates back to the theme of the story. So the theme is the life lesson. So you're going to have to tell me, what is that internal conflict? Internal means it's happening within the character's head. So this is going to be character versus self. And then you're going to say, in this example, the main character struggles with turning in his or her best friend for lying and cheating on a test. That would be an example of internal conflict. Then you would tell me how it goes back to the theme. This relates back to the theme of the story because this theme of the story is that good always prevails. And by doing the right thing, he is teaching his friend a lesson that cheaters never prosper. That would be an example of what to do. Now, this is for the last dog, so yours is going to deal with Brock, the main character's internal conflict. And then for having proper grammar, capitalization, punctuation, and spelling, you get 1 point. Then you have to have an internal conflict illustration. So you're going to draw a picture that corresponds with your internal conflict. So your picture is going to correspond with your internal conflict for 2 points. Your picture is colored, that's 1 point. Your picture is neat and distinguishable, which means I can tell what it is, that's 1 point. Your picture is labeled, that's 1 point. And you have no white space on your picture except for teeth, eyeballs, clouds, and cotton. So, and your picture cannot be a stick figure. So all of that needs to make sure that it is on there as well. All right, so after your internal conflict illustration, you have your external conflict. So it says you have a quote of at least one complete sentence, which is 2 points. Your quote is found on pages 183 through 185. Again, that is going to be 1 point. Then you use the correct parenthetical referencing, which is going to be the author's last name, page number, and remember I put line number, it should say paragraph number. here because we don't have lines on this one. Your quote is written legibly and neatly. It's 2 sentences long. You have a 2-sentence explanation of how your quote is external and how it relates back to your theme. So an external conflict is going to be something that happens outside of the body. So this is going to be like character versus character, whether it be a physical altercation or 2 characters arguing with each other. That is an external conflict. It can also be character versus nature. So your character is swept up in a typhoon, or your character is stranded in the desert, your character is having to survive a hurricane. Any of that is going to be external. And then the last thing is going to be, how does it relate, character versus society? So that's going to be like Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games, where your character is breaking laws, rules, and regulations. Then you get 1 point for having proper spelling and grammar. All right, and so then group member 1 is also going to have to do an external conflict illustration. That's going to be a picture that corresponds with the external conflict above. Your picture is colored, your picture is neat and distinguishable, your picture is labeled, there's no white space except for teeth, eyeballs, clouds, and cotton, and your picture is not a stick figure. Then you have visual interpretation 3. So this is your background. This is for the whole group to work on. So this is part of your group grade. It says it must tie in with your reading as a whole. So you can't draw. So this one, remember, is science fiction. They're in a dome in a desolate world, or a world that's just now starting to recoup itself or get better from too much pollution. So because of that, you're not going to draw a nice green lush forest. You're going to draw maybe a few green trees, but nothing major. You could draw the dome as part of your background as well. It must be larger than the visual interpretations for external and internal conflict. So this one's going to take up a majority of your poster. And then visual interpretation is colored and no white space is visible. So remember again, eyeballs, teeth, and clouds. It's not a stick person, and you have it labeled. So I know what you're drawing. I know we're not all artists, so sometimes I need you to write down what you're drawing so I can figure out what it is. Then you have your summary of your literary work. You're going to provide an objective summary. That means no opinion. So no words like I think, I feel, I believe of your literary work. So you're summarizing the story, The Last Dog. You're going to start with a tag sentence, which is 1 point, and it's going to have your title, author, and genre. Remember to mention your theme in your summary and your tag sentence. And your summary is going to be objective. Again, that's no opinions. That's 1 point. And your summary is at least 8 sentences long. This is a long story. So you need to make sure that you have a minimum of 8 sentences in order to get all the major events in. You get points for proper grammar, capitalization, punctuation, and spelling. And then the ending of the story is not revealed. Remember, in a summary, you never want to give away your ending. Then we have our essential question. Your essential question is going to be the question that we have throughout the unit. Can or should we make a home in space? So you're going to write your essential question above wherever you're going to answer it. So that's the first thing. Should we make a home in space? They're going to answer it using RACE. That's restate, answer, cite, and explain. Your answer is going to use appropriate spelling, punctuation, grammar, and sentence structure. Your group is going to be your opinion if you're a virtual student, so it's just you, or your group's opinion is defended with one piece of textual evidence from the story. So find something from the story that supports your thinking. Then you have textual evidence is quoted correctly, and your evidence has a proper introductory phrase. So like the text states, or in The Last Dog, the author says. Those would be examples of how to make sure that you are quoting or using a proper introductory phrase. Then work ethic. An appropriate amount of effort was put into your project. That's 1 point. There's no white space visible. 1 point. Now remember, clouds, eyeballs, teeth, all of that's acceptable. No pencil is visible. In other words, trace over or write in pen so it's easier for me to read. I'm old. It's hard for me to see. All writing is legible and neat, so I can read everything that you have on your poster. That is 1 point. And then you have name, date, and hour are listed on the back. That's 3 points. So your total is worth 78 points for this project. And you notice I have a place for teacher comments. Now, that was group member 1. Notice group member 2 is exactly the same, except for they're looking at pages 186 through 188. So you do everything exactly the same, except you are looking at pages 186 through 188. Group member 3, again, is doing the same thing, except they're at pages 189 through 191. And then group member 4 is going to have our falling action and our resolution. So this is pages 192 through 194. Now, at the bottom, you can see that I also have this one-pager directions. It basically says that we just finished reading The Last Dog by Katherine Patterson, and that you are going to make sure that you are now creating a one-pager. It says list the title of the story and the author's name at the top. List the genre and subgenre. You're going to have each group member should choose a quote that displays internal conflict, and remember to use parenthetical referencing like author's last name, page number, and remember this is going to be paragraph number. Tell me the conflict type. Like, is it character versus self, character versus nature? For anything with internal conflict, it's character versus self. Each group member should have a 2 or more sentence explanation of his or her internal conflict or quote and how it relates back to the theme. They're going to illustrate a picture that ties to that internal conflict or quote, and you're going to label your picture. You can put your quote inside of your picture. So if you're drawing something about maybe a river or a stream or a brook, and then you want to draw that stream and put your quote in there, that's totally fine. Then you have each group member should choose a quote that displays external conflict. Remember to use parenthetical referencing again. Instead of line number, this should say paragraph. Then you're going to tell me the conflict. Remember, this is not going to be character versus self. This is going to be character versus nature or society, or it's going to be character versus character. So that's going to be either 2 characters fighting, characters breaking the law or rules, or characters fighting the elements outside. Then again, you're going to give me a 2 or more sentence explanation that relates back to the theme. Then you're going to give me a picture that ties that external quote together. And remember, you can put your picture inside of your quote. All right, and then you have illustrate a third picture that ties to the story as a whole. So this is your background. So then you have to have your background. Then develop an objective, no opinion summary for the story that is 8 or more sentences. Remember not to give away the ending. They're going to develop an answer to the essential question for Unit 2. It's should we make a home in space? You're going to use race, so restate, answer, cite, and explain. You're going to write the question above the answer and have at least 5-sentence answer. It says make sure your illustrations are neat and white space is limited, and make sure all writing is legible. In other words, can I read it? So our students that are in class are also getting this nice little assignment. So it says group member number 1. What are they supposed to do? Read pages 183 through 185. Find one example of internal conflict, one example of external conflict. Quote it using proper parenthetical referencing, author's last name, page number, and paragraph number. Write a 2-sentence explanation of how each example of conflict results back to the story's theme. Use proper spelling, grammar, punctuation, and sentence structure, and create a colored illustration for each conflict example. Then for the whole group, this is where you're going to titles at the top of your poster, correct capitalization, correct punctuation and spelling. Author's name is at the top of the poster. Again, correct capitalization, correct spelling. Genre is listed, fiction or nonfiction. Subgenre is listed, which is science fiction. All-encompassing picture or background is present. Then after that, you have your pairs information. So you're going to have to answer the essential question using race, restate, answer, cite, and explain. Your essential question is, should we make a home in space? You're going to write the essential question before you write your answer. Use one piece of evidence from the story to support your answer. Quote the evidence to defend your opinion using your parenthetical referencing, author's last name, page number, paragraph number, and then use appropriate grammar, spelling, sentence structure, and punctuation, and have at least 5 sentences. If you are a 2 and a 4, you're going to write a summary of The Last Dog by Katherine Patterson. You're going to start with a tag sentence, title, author, genre, and state the theme. You're going to have no opinions in your summary. You're going to include only the most important events, people, and settings. Summary is at least 8 sentences. You're going to use correct grammar, spelling, punctuation, and sentence structure. And then summary does not give away the ending of the story. Then again, group member 2 does the same thing that group member 1 did. They just changed the page numbers 186 through 188. Group member 3, same exact thing as group members 1 and 2. You just have pages 189 through 191. And then group member number 4, same exact thing as 1, 2, and 3. You just have 192 through 194. So I hope all of this information helps. I know it's a lot. I'm sorry this video is so long, but I wanted to make sure that you guys had all of your information. If you have any questions, please let me know. I look forward to seeing what you create.